Hello everybody, welcome to the human anatomy class. The first topic of this class is Introduction to Anatomy. In this slide, we are going to learn about two very important terms, anatomy and physiology. So what does the term anatomy mean? Anatomy is a branch of biology that involves the study of structures of living organisms and their body parts. So if it is human anatomy, that means it's the study of the human body. It's a really old branch of science with origin dating back to prehistoric times because people have always been fascinated by the structural organization of living organisms. So what kind of structures do we study in anatomy? All kinds of structures. These can be structures present on the outside of the body. We call them the external structures. Structures can be present deep inside the body. Those are internal structures. We also study how one structure influences another structure, that is relationship between body parts. Moving to physiology. Physiology is also a branch of biology that means the study of functions. So it is basically about how the body parts are working. What is the mechanism of their action? That is physiology. Anatomy and physiology are closely related. Structure and function are closely related. They are interdependent on each other. So, two magic words in this slide: structure, which is anatomy, and physiology, the magic word is function. Now, anatomy we are going to learn in two different levels. The first one is microscopic anatomy and the second one is macroscopic anatomy. The word micro means small. That means in this part, in microscopic anatomy, we are going to learn about structures that are really small. Now macroscopic, the word macro, M-A-C-R-O, means big. So in this part of anatomy, we are going to learn about structures that are bigger in size than microscopic anatomy. Now, to say this in a more scientific manner, microscopic anatomy can be defined as the study of structures that cannot be seen with your naked eye, that means with your unaided eye. So you need some kind of magnification in order to see these structures that are really, really tiny. Microscopic anatomy can further be subdivided into cytology and histology. So you see both of these terms end with the logy. Logy comes from the word logos, which means to study. So cytology is cyto plus logy, study of cells, because cyto means cells. And histology is study of tissues, because histo means tissues. So two types of microscopic anatomy, cytology and histology. Moving on to macroscopic anatomy, here we are going to learn about structures that you can see without magnification, so you can see it with your unaided eyes. Now there are subtypes under macroscopic anatomy. Macroscopic anatomy is also known as gross anatomy. The first one is surface anatomy. That means structures that are present superficially on the outside. Regional anatomy, structures present in a particular region. For example, structures present in the neck region or structures present in the head region. Systemic anatomy, that means anatomy of the various body systems. We have so many different systems in our body that are working together in collaboration. For example, your circulatory system, respiratory system, digestive system. Some other perspectives on anatomy can be developmental anatomy. In this anatomy, you are learning about the structures that change over the course of development, human development, during, from fetal stage to adult stage. Comparative anatomy means the anatomy where we are comparing the structures of different types of living organisms. Okay, there could be similarities, there could be differences in their structures. Clinical anatomy and surgical anatomy, they are focusing on the pathological changes or during the structures that you see during surgical procedures. Radiographic anatomy, from the name itself, you see radiographic. So these are structures that are that can be seen with the use of X-rays or other imaging techniques such as ultrasound. Cross-sectional anatomy means when you use certain radiographic techniques like CT or MRIs, and you're looking at different sections of the body. Human anatomy has different levels of organization. If we start from the smallest level, that means what are the smallest elements that create the human anatomy? It would be the chemical or the molecular level. What are the chemicals that the human body is made up of? Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and so many others. So these are the chemicals which form the human body. Now these chemicals, they come together to form tiny machineries inside structures, units that work like factories, and those units are known as cells. So the chemicals or the molecules, they form the machinery inside a cell. A cell is a basic unit of life. It is a basic unit because it is capable of sustaining itself, living independently. So cells, when they work together, when they are structurally similar and they perform a common function, they constitute the next level, which is known as the tissue. Now, different tissues, when they perform a common function, they form an organ. An example of an organ would be your heart, your lungs, the brain. These are all organs. Then organs, when they work together to perform a common function, they constitute an organ system. Example, the circulatory system, the respiratory system, the nervous system, and all the organ systems together in the human body, they constitute the organism, the human being. So from the smallest to the largest, that means the simplest, from the simplest to the most complex, the levels of organization are chemical, cell, tissue, organ, organ system, and then organism. If you are asked in a test to write down the levels of organization from the largest to the smallest, which one would you write first? You would start with organism. So you would go in the opposite order, right? This figure is illustrating what we just learned in the previous slide. If you see here, the top panel of the figure shows the various molecules that make up the human body, such as carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and how these molecules are forming different compounds, which is shown in the second panel from the top. What are the different compounds that can be formed by carbon, hydrogen, or oxygen? The different compounds are carbohydrates, proteins, lipids. So these compounds will make up the organelles, okay, which are the different machineries present inside the cell. Our body is made up of millions and trillions of cells. The cells together will make up the tissue. For example, all the cells in your skin, they are making up a particular kind of tissue called the epithelial tissue. This tissue is different from blood. The cells in your blood, they are making up a different type of tissue. Blood is a connective tissue. And the tissues make up organs, for example, heart, for example, brain, for example, the lungs. And the organs make up the different organ systems, and we're going to learn about all of these organ systems in this class. And finally, all of these organs working together, they constitute the organism, the human being. The human body is made up of 11 organ systems. Each of this organ system has its own structure and function, unique structure and function. But this does not mean that these organ systems work in isolation. All of these organ systems work together. There is perfect coordination between these organ systems that ensures survival of the human body. In this chapter, we are going to learn about all the 11 organ systems present in the human body. We're going to get a broad idea about these systems. That means what are the components of each system, what are the organs that are making up each system, also what are their main functions. So we're going to start with the integumentary system. The integumentary system is mainly made up of the skin and other superficial structures like the hair, the nails, or the glands on the skin. So those are the main organs. That means the skin, hair, nails, sweat glands that make up the integumentary system. And what are their main functions? So what do you think is the skin doing in your body? The skin is your first line of barrier against any kind of outside attack. So that means the primary function of skin is protection. Similarly, the hair and the nail, they are also helping you. They're protecting your body. The sweat glands, can you think of the function of the sweat glands? Well, the sweat glands secrete sweat. That means when the body is getting overheated, the sweat evaporates and it helps in cooling down the body. So these are the main functions of the integumentary system. The second organ system is the skeletal system. What are the main organs that make up the skeletal system? The bones and some other associated structures like cartilages, like joints, and also what is present inside long bones, the bone marrow. So what are the main functions, primary functions of skeletal system? What do you think are bones doing in your body? Well, your skeleton is the main structural framework. It is what is supporting your body. Otherwise, your body would be like pulp. So mainly support, protection. Now moving on to bone marrow. There are two types of bone marrow. The red bone marrow, this is the birthplace of all of your blood cells. The yellow bone marrow is fat, so it gives you energy. Bones help you in moving along with the muscles. So the third organ system is muscular system. So muscular system is mainly made up of muscles. And what is the primary function of muscles? M for muscles, M for movement. So muscles help you to move the entire body or move parts of your body. So it is both the muscular system and the skeletal system together, because muscles are attached to bones, which help you to move a body part or to move the entire body. The fourth organ system is the nervous system. It's a very important system because the main function of this system is to control the activity of other systems. So it is a regulatory system. What is it made up of? It is made up of the brain, which is the control center in your body, the spinal cord that travels down on the back side of your body, the various nerves that are coming out or going into the spinal cord or the brain, and also the special senses. So how does it work? Let's say your ears hear a loud noise. So the loud noise is an input, and that message is taken by the nerves to the brain. Then the brain immediately makes a decision, and it sends that decision via another set of nerves to your eye muscles, and it causes the eyes to look in that direction of the noise. So this is how the nervous system works. The fifth organ system is the endocrine system. The endocrine system, just like the nervous system, is also responsible for controlling the function of other systems. However, unlike nervous system, the effects of the endocrine system are not fast. The endocrine system controls long-term changes, and how it does that is by the secretion of, that means the release of hormones. I think all of you have heard of hormones. What is the most important male hormone? Testosterone. Give me the example of a female hormone, estrogen. What are the glands that secrete testosterone or estrogen? Testosterone is secreted by the testes in males. Estrogen is secreted by the ovaries in females. So the testes and the ovaries are part of the endocrine system. You also must have heard of insulin hormone, right? What's the function of insulin? Insulin keeps the level of glucose in your blood at a normal level. So what happens when you've just had a large meal? The sugar level in your blood tends to spike. Then there's a particular gland in your body known as the pancreas gland, which is an endocrine gland. It secretes insulin, and this hormone goes and it brings the level of sugar down to the normal levels in your blood. So there are different endocrine glands which make up the endocrine system, and we will learn about each of these glands and what are the hormones that are secreted and how they are controlling your bodily functions in the endocrine system. The sixth organ system is known as the cardiovascular system. It is also called the circulatory system. The main organs or components of this system are the heart, blood, and the blood vessels. We have different types of blood vessels. What's the primary function of this system? It is transport. Blood is the main transport agency in your body. It transports gases, it transports nutrients, it transports waste products. Everything that has to go anywhere in the body is transported by blood. The seventh organ system is lymphatic system. Lymphatic system is very similar to the cardiovascular system, and the main function of this system is immunity. That means this system protects your body against any kind of foreign invasion or foreign infection. What are some of the components or organs of this particular system? It is made up of lymph nodes, it is made up of spleen, there's a particular gland called thymus, then there are vessels which are known as lymphatic vessels, which are also similar to the blood vessels. The next system is respiratory system. The respiratory system is made up of the nose. The space inside the nose is the nasal cavities. Then as you go further inside, it forms a tube-like structure, and the tube-like structure has different names in different parts. It starts in the throat region, it's known as pharynx, then it moves further down, it forms the voice box or the sound box, which is known as the larynx. Then the windpipe is the trachea, which goes inside and it forms the bronchi, and the bronchi open into the lungs. So what are the main functions of the respiratory system? Well, the first function is gas exchange. That means oxygen gets inside the body, carbon dioxide goes out. Why is gas exchange so important? It's because every cell in your body needs oxygen to survive. In addition to gas exchange, some other functions of respiratory system are voice production, because without your larynx there cannot be production of voice, no sound production. Also the sense of smell. There are some receptors known as olfactory receptors present inside the space inside your nose, which is the nasal cavity. The next system is digestive system. Digestive system is all about eating. So the main functions are the taking in of the food, the processing of the food, and then finally the absorption of nutrients. Nutrients such as carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and so on. What are the main components? The main components are, as soon as you put the food in, it goes inside your mouth. So the space inside the mouth is the oral cavity. There are different structures that are helping in the digestion or the breakdown of the food so that nutrients can be released. And the food goes through the food pipe, which is the esophagus. It goes into the stomach, which is where the food is further churned and broken down. Then the food goes into the intestine, where absorption of nutrients starts. And finally, the undigested food comes out of the body through the other opening, which is the anus. The next system is the urinary system, also known as the renal system. The urinary system is mainly made up of a pair of kidneys which are present dorsally, that means on the back side of the body. There are tubes that come out of the kidneys which are known as ureters, and then the ureters open into the urinary bladder. The main function of the kidneys is to make urine. How? By filtering blood. So whatever the body does not need, the waste products from the blood are filtered out and they are expelled by means of the urinary system. And the kidneys and the bladder and all of these organs, they help the body to get rid of the waste products. The last organ system is the reproductive system, and I call it the two-in-one system because there is a male reproductive system and a female reproductive system. There are similarities between the male and the female reproductive system as well as differences. The main functions of the reproductive system is reproduction. That means production of offsprings. And if you look at the big picture, it is continuation of life, perpetuation of species. So the reproductive system produces the sex cells. That means in males, there is production of the sperm, and in females, there is production of eggs. And also the reproductive system produces hormones that help the sperm and the ova to mature. Now we'll start with the male reproductive system. What are the main components? There is a pair of testes where the sperms are produced. These are the sperm forming factories, and then there is a duct system that takes the sperms to the outside of the body. There is some external genitalia that helps in the mechanics of transfer of sperm from the male body into the female reproductive tract. Moving on to the female reproductive system, the main components are a pair of ovaries. Again, there is a duct system which transports the egg outside. The egg waits to be fertilized by the sperm in the uterine tubes. If the egg gets fertilized, it moves or it rolls down into the uterus. The uterus would serve as home for the fertilized egg for the next 9 months. And further down from the uterus is the vagina, which is the receptacle for the male penis during sexual intercourse. Mammary glands are also included in the female reproductive system. So this table here is a summary of all the 11 organ systems that we have just learned. You see here the major functions are listed. By the end of your chapter 1, I would expect all students to be able to write down all the 11 organ systems and their major functions and some of their main components. Now I have provided here a mnemonic for you to remember all 11 organ systems. It is Murder's Link. So each alphabet of this stands for a particular system, organ system. For example, M is for muscular system, U is for urinary system, R respiratory system, D digestive system, E endocrine system, R reproductive system, S skeletal system, L lymphatic, I integumentary, N nervous, C cardiovascular. Now there are some hallmarks of life. This is a list of characters that define living organisms. That means all living organisms exhibit these particular features or characters. The first one is responsiveness. That means living beings respond to stimuli. Stimuli means external signals or triggers. For example, you hear a loud noise, your ears hear a loud noise and your eyes look in that particular direction. Or you touch something hot and you immediately move your hand away. This is responsiveness. The second one is adaptability. Living things adapt. Okay, for example, when it gets very hot, you automatically start to sweat. Why? Because so that the sweat may evaporate and your body cools down. So you're adapting to this hot stimulus. You're adapting to the hot external environment. The third one is growth. Living beings exhibit growth. from the embryonic stage to the fetal stage to adulthood. All of us, we are growing. Our bones are growing. We are increasing muscle mass. And then in elderly age, it's the opposite. We lose muscle mass and we are kind of shrinking in size. The fourth one is differentiation. Differentiation means specialization. Remember, all life starts as a single cell when the sperm fertilizes the ovum. Then from that one cell, it divides by mitosis to form two cells, from 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 16, and so on. And then these cells start specializing. Okay, some cells will go and form the skeletal system, some cells will form the nervous system, some cells will form the heart, some will form the lungs. So there is differentiation going on there. The next one is reproduction. All living things procreate. They produce offspring so that life continues. Movement. Living things would exhibit some kind of movement. It could be partial, it could be complete. Movement of part of their body, movement of the entire body. The last one is metabolism. Metabolism means the sum total of all chemical reactions going on inside your body. That is metabolism. You all must have heard of, okay, this person has a high metabolic rate, or as you age, your metabolism goes down. Metabolism can further be divided into catabolism and anabolism. Catabolism means breaking down. For example, when you eat food, that food is broken down into smaller pieces and nutrients are released. So that is an example of catabolism. And the exact opposite of catabolism is anabolism, which means building up. When you're building up something, anytime a protein is synthesized in your body, it is anabolism. Your bones are growing in length, anabolism. You're building muscle mass, anabolism. So metabolism is actually catabolism plus anabolism.